Saturday, 8th of March, 2025 at 11:22 a.m. here on Harstine Island, Washington, United States of America. Welcome once again to our cosmic journey. You are watching the Dev and Design Astrology podcast, highlighting the journey that two people took to make the world's best astrology software. The designer is here. He's Jake. Who are you? You're the engineer.
I'm the engineer, Trey.
I'm the engineer.
I engineer it.
We always do a levels check before we do this video, and then I tell Trey, there's no point in doing a levels check because you'll just start shouting anyways. Him shouting, I'm the engineer, makes perfect sense to me. Hi, Trey.
You might as well just start clipping like right out of the gate.
I mean, we already just clipped. I just heard it. So stop perfect. Shouting. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good, actually. I'm doing great.
Good.
Yeah. How are you doing?
Too. I'm here. I'm wearing a t-shirt here, like we went running, so that happens.
Yeah. Why are you wearing a tank top? It's like, I don't know, still winter time here.
It's very much like episode 1 where I wore the tank top. Take a look up there, because that's the last time that I probably wore a tank top. Today's agenda is called the episode's called The Standard Path. Usually we'd have the episode number here, but I can't remember what we're at. 78, I think.
Something ridiculous. Who cares?
Something ridiculous. Who cares? So we're going to do Trey's check-in question today. We'll talk a little bit about Trey's journey through getting sync working and how he has learned some lessons, and my lessons learning going through actually ChatGPT's deep research, where I think we both came up to the same lesson, which we'll talk about probably later. And we'll do a little bit of thanks for that. But before we get to all of that, Mr. Henry, it is your check-in question.
Okay, so here's my check-in question for you, Mr. Zukowski. What is something that people should appreciate about you, but they don't know that they should appreciate about you?
What people should appreciate, but they don't know about me, is that I'm actually a demonstrably good cook. And I'm very good with flavors and flavor combinations. I think, like, there's people who are very good with technical and technique. There's people that are very good with pairings, things like that. But if you give me like a dish and you're like, it's not flavored correctly, I am very good at tuning all of that in order to like maximize the flavors that are coming out and not overdo it with like a bomb, but rather have it something that's like kind of well balanced and has like the sweet, the savory, the umami. So I'm pretty good with all of that. I don't get nearly enough credit for that, honestly, in this whole relationship. And when I say, when you hear the anger in my voice, it's really directed towards my mother and father-in-law that do not give me credit for enough for this. That's always like, my mom will never give me credit, and I completely understand that. My dad, God rest his soul, would also never give me credit. But you know what? Like, it's the changeable people in my life, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, that also don't give me credit for
that. That's not entirely true, because when you make something, it is always very well appreciated, because you're an amazing cook. I will personally vouch for that too, because like all of the things that we make that are not like, I'm good at like following a recipe. Like, I'm like, okay, like, here's a bread recipe or something, I'm going to follow that. And like, I can follow directions well. But when it comes to just kind of like,
you were very good at minor tweaking, but you're not good at like major tweaking, I think, of things.
Yeah. Like exactly. Like, I can swap out ingredients or something like that in like a recipe that already exists. But you are actually like, you have composed things that we eat regularly that are amazing, like our savory oatmeal, for example.
Oh yes.
Which is always different, and it's always incredible.
The best tabula rasa that you can paint your picture on is oatmeal. That's your that is your
it can really do anything
today. You can literally do anything with it. And I make really good savory oatmeal.
Yeah, among many other things. But I will say that, you have made things, and both my mom and dad have been like, this is really good. But I think generally speaking, when it's like, who are the cooks in the family, you are left out of that equation. Correct. Even though you should be in it.
Hey, tip, in case you ever cook for Trey's mom and dad, if you cook something and then you say that Trey cooked it, they will appreciate it even more. Just let you know. I have used this strategy before. I'm like, yeah, Trey made this. Like, oh my God, it's so, they're like effusive over the top. And I'm like, gotcha, it was me. That's very Saturnian of me to do that. That's like I'm setting the
Setting it
traps. I always set the traps. What about you? What's something that we should
Hmm.
appreciate about you that we don't necessarily appreciate?
Yeah, maybe that most people think, because I think a lot of people know. Yeah, I mean, obviously, a lot of people know that I'm an engineer. I'm in our relationship. A lot of people also know that I'm the one that's usually on the hook for, like, oh, if there's like work that needs to be done on the house or whatever, right? Like, I'm the one that got up for several days onto the roof and used a screwdriver to get all of the moss off the roof.
If I remember, editor Jake will be adding some photos and videos of you
Perfect.
scraping the roof here. But hopefully, we'll just see if editor Jake's got that. Agreed.
Yeah,
Like I,
but
I think you get credit for that though.
no. Yeah, but the thing I was going to say that people might not know is that I'm also really good at working on cars.
That's
Um,
true. You are very good at
and
working on cars.
yeah, the Jeep, like our Jeep, who's been around for a while, is, like, I've done a ton of work on the Jeep. I can do brakes, I can do like oil. I've taken the whole like console apart and like refreshed wires and stuff. And yeah, so I've done. There's quite a bit of car work that I've done.
And I'm looking forward to when you change the headlights out and you fix the ground strap so it doesn't beep anymore. This is
Yeah,
not a
there's always
honeydew
something to do.
podcast. There's always something to do. This is not a honeydew podcast. This is a podcast about dev and design of astrology software. So let's get to it. Good check-in, everyone. Good check-in.
Good check it.
Let's talk about your status when it comes
Hmm.
to doing sync for Asabove and Sobelow. Where are you at?
Yeah, so this week was spent going down several rabbit holes with options for doing, a purely offline application that syncs to the server when sync is available. This is surprisingly still a really hard problem.
Shockingly hard.
Yeah. There's a lot of solutions, like out of the box solutions, which a variety of service providers, like cloud providers and things like that, give you, to sort of like lock you into their ecosystem of services and then charge you lots of money for them. So
Makes sense.
like, yeah, so there's a lot of things that you can just use off the shelf, and it's like, oh yeah, here you go, like a library. It works with our backend services, like whatever. But there's a couple of problems with that. One, the cost. But two, they often make a lot of assumptions that might not be appropriate for your stack.
Hmm.
And so we tried a few different things, and we ultimately ended up kind of picking the thing that is the most used, most obvious thing. And I think this is what's going to come back to our sort of title of the episode, which is, sort of taking the beaten path. When something has been around for a long time in technology, and a long time here being like a decade is a long time, right? When you're talking about tech,
Absolutely.
and so something that's been around for a while and has been under constant work over that period of time. So it's like not an abandoned project, but it's actually something that's been worked on over time. Has probably already sort of had to deal with a lot of issues. And while there's always new sexy things coming up, the one optimization that I think we've learned through this process, like this week and a little bit of last week, is maybe start with the biggest, most used, most obvious answer,
Yeah.
and then look at like what the other options are.
There's a whole book about this. As you well know, I am a huge fan of the library, and I found this little gem on the shelf by Richard Koch called 80/20 Daily. And literally, what it's talking about is you get 80% of the work done if you 20% of the way. So basically, you do 20% of the work and you get 80% of the work done. It's talking about being intelligent but lazy. And sometimes I think we can, this is me and Trey, can be like too clever by half when thinking about like, oh, we should explore this and do that. And like, there's a reason why the tried and true paths are tried and true. Now, that works until it doesn't work. And so finding the balance between how to do a tried and true path versus making something that is unique and useful in a novel and meaningful way to someone is really where the balance is.
Yeah, exactly. That's really well stated. And I think the fact that we're building astrology software is just this extra complication in the machinery, right? It's like it's like, oh yeah, we need to do a specific thing, but we also need to do it in like a weird way, which makes it so that the most obvious answer doesn't maybe seem to be the most obvious. So there's always this kind of thing that I'm doing while engineering on Cosmic where I'm like trying to wrap my head around what we like our domain space and what we have to provide and what we have available to us for technology. And it's just like a constant, it's like if you're building a, I don't know, like a blog, or you're building like a video streaming service or something, right? Like it's so obvious and straightforward.
The reason this isn't straightforward is because the exemplars that are within our industry are actually not good exemplars that work well with how professional astrologers want and like to do their work.
Yeah, and exactly. So, yeah, we've talked a lot about that as well. Yeah.
And I guess that's a nice way to parry into the next section, which is talking a little bit about how we've started using the deep research capabilities of our friend ChatGPT to start to check and verify some of our assumptions that we've made in our software. And so I did a little bit, there's nothing to show here. It's just a big page of text, but I asked a lot of questions about like the assumptions we were making, and it knows the research that we've already done too, the ChatGPT. And I just started asking a lot of questions and assumptions about, is this the right way to go? And the thing that I was really caring about is, are we making choices in the architecture or the design of our software that are going to prevent us from supporting other astrological practices that we have not even considered, like Yodish or Vedic, like Mesoamerican? The great answer is no. There's nothing that we have designed or architected that is going to prevent us from moving into Yodish or to Mesoamerican astrology. However, the thing that I was getting from this report is that the choices that we have made, it was so great to see these things, these concepts that we've been thinking about, start showing up in this research report, this deep research report. And it's really reinforced for me that the kind of frightened nature that I can have, because you have to make decisions, and making decisions means that you are deciding against something. And are we making the right decisions? We're never going to get all of it right. But again, if I'm going to go back to this book, it seems like we're making like the 80% of it correct, and the rest of it will kind of fall into place. And if you can do that, the royal we, if we can do that, I think we're going to make something that we promise at the beginning of every episode of this podcast. We will make the world's best astrology software. I think it all has told me that I need to calm down and I need to simplify lots of things. It's very weird to have a computer program that is a statistical analytical model that's just putting together tokens to basically tell me to simplify and to calm down. It's therapeutic though, I guess. Like it's nice. As someone who doesn't like simplicity and who doesn't like calming down, it's nice to hear.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's not like, you could put two googly eyes on a rock and have an emotional relationship with it. So it's not like humans require a lot of.
There's your emotional relationship, Brock, right there.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. Anyway.
Okay. Well, what should the good viewer do? Maybe it has to do with their emotion and their emotional relationship with things that are not people, perhaps.
I was actually going to say that they should try doing something with oatmeal that they've never done before.
Okay. Either find a. Okay. I'm going to say that you should find a rock, paint it, and put googly eyes on it, or you can try something new with oatmeal. Either way, be well. Take care. We love you very much. We're going to see you next week. We really appreciate and care for each and every one of you, and take care. And goodbye.
Bye.